Hello and welcome to Great Train Layouts Live. I'm your host, Nico Zarak. It's good to have you with us this evening. We've got another project in store, or rather, we're revisiting the project after the past couple of months. I'm joined by my co host, Mr. Alco. Say hi to the folks at home, Alco. Uh, so, now that Alco has joined us, it's good to see everybody and it's good to be with you tonight. Please let me know if I've forgotten to unmute myself. I'm seeing my audio level, so I'm pretty sure I haven't forgotten that. But I usually have forgotten something. So good to have you along. We are revisiting and finishing up the N scale 5x7 Iain Rice track plan for the Minnesota Northern Fictional Railroad. Thank you for your introduction, Alco. And to do that, it's great to have you along with us. For those of you who are watching live and can contribute your feedback, input, suggestions, all of that good stuff. Tonight, as you can see from 2 months ago, we got the track in place. A lot of the buildings worked out. Now we're going to have fun super detailing the scenes and really making it come alive. But before we do that, I want to thank tonight's sponsor, Banta Model Works. Really appreciate them supporting us for a multitude of episodes, and they have just released their East Broadtop Blacksmith Shop kit, which you can buy using the link in the video description. And in honor of them sponsoring this episode, you can see that we've incorporated that very blacksmith shop into the fabric of tonight's build right here. The thing that, honestly, the blacksmith shop at the East Broadtop is probably my favorite building within the complex. There's just something really nice about the facade of it. It has a very optimistic front because you're seeing this front face of it when you first walk onto the property and see the shops, and I just love this building. So it's going to be nice to have a model version of it, and one that's relatively easy to build. Kudos to Banta for coming out with all these East Broadtop kits. They also recently came out with their electrical and brake shop kit, which we've also tucked into the design over here. So before we get to do that, I'm going to move you guys off to the side because I need to be able to actually see what you are all saying and keep you... There we go. So, let's get started, shall we? Where do we want to begin with? So just kind of a revisiting the plan with what we've got. This 5x7 track plan, which was initially billed by Iain Rice as Transition Era CB and Q, which is a name that allows us to have some fun with what it actually is. It gives us continuous running, continuous staging behind here that can launch trains in both directions. Obviously, the staging is kind of occupied by all these buildings that we're only using the fronts of. I think what I'll probably do off camera at some point is just move the tracks out a little bit so that we could kind of just make that dead space and then have the staging actually come out to about here. That's what I'm thinking anyway. So we've got the staging. We've got one central town that we are modeling, which we're going with Relis, because that's the station building that we have placed here. But if you have some name suggestions of your own, you could always find another station model or plaster something over the name so that we could give it our own name. So if you've got, keep in mind, this is for the Minnesota and Northern Fictional Railroad. So if you've got a Minnesota-esque sounding name, whether you're watching live or on watching this after we go live, do leave a comment and maybe I'll just name it after your suggestion. We've got Relis, our primary town. I envision as sort of the... You could treat it as either division point or as a terminal. It's maybe like a small terminal. I kind of see it as location between where you've got the secondary main line or a branch line that isn't, rundown. I mean, you could do it as a rundown branch line, but maybe it's more like a branch line in name, but feels like a main line. Number of ways that you could go about theming it. And then that way you have a way of turning your power around so that if you're doing steam era, you can bring your power in, turn it, and send it the other way. You can have your operation stage so that things are coming out of staging, going in the scene and back out, or vice versa. A plan that hopefully lends itself to a lot of play, as we'll be experimenting with in a bit. So we've got the town of Relis here, and what do I want to do with it, if anything? Well, off camera, I want to do some creating a background for it, just so that it has some more town buildings and the like. But we've kind of done what we can with these building flats for the time being, and texturing. I think that's probably good for now. Let's put a bumper post here. Might need some ground clutter and super detail like that, but I think we're going to probably spend most of our attention on the other side. So we'll find ourselves a nice haze bumper. Hope you guys are having a good summer, enjoying yourselves, enjoying getting out and riding some trains, going to some museums, doing some model railroading. I've actually been working on my layout. I've been good, depending on how you define good. But I'm going to say I've been good. I've been actually working on my layout, and my layout is going to feature in next month's stream. And you'll see. You'll just have to tune in to find out. I think I've told you guys what I'm modeling, so that's not a secret. I'm doing Greenfield Village, but you'll get to see the progress I've made with it, and how I've managed to cram it into a very tiny space. Millennial Modeler, I'm currently knee-deep in DM and IR N-Scale coffee table layout project. I'm looking forward to some Minnesota-esque scenery inspiration with tonight's stream. Well, hopefully we can evoke that. So, very first thing, we're probably going to just go ahead and put a backdrop against the back here so that we kind of know what our scenery limits are. So to do that, we're going to uncheck the walls. So one of the things I did off stream is I created a new background that is double-sided. In fact, and I did a batch convert on this, which is why this one doesn't have the special feature. But if we go to MR back, you'll see what I've gone and done is I've created both a double-sided one where you have sky on both sides, like so, and I've also created a single-sided one where you have sky on one side and black on the other, which is what this is going to be eventually. So we're going to go ahead and we'll just go ahead and wall in the entire thing just so we know what the limits that we're working with are. I'm going to turn on the base map just so that I have that as kind of a guide. And then we'll throw that all the way here. And I've created some other assets too, which are going to allow us to get a little, have some fun with how we incorporate the backdrop into other scenes. I've very much gotten into 3D modeling, not to the extent of some of the artists that provide the fine content that we're using on the stream, but enough that I could create basic shapes and basic forms, which I do think makes a difference when you're actually visualizing, for example, how does something disappear into the backdrop. Now, here's something I'm particularly proud of, right? So, what I've done I've created some different heights of backdrop, so that way, what we can do is we can have it come in and cross over the tracks and connect like, oh, I connected to the wrong spline. Connect like, oh, and then you connect it backwards. So if we move it like so, it should, nope, it's showing the wrong side. And it keeps wanting to flip it. So we'll just use the double-sided short. And here we go. So, check that out. So we will turn off our base maps later, and you'll see that now I've created a backdrop in which we can actually simulate the train going through the backdrop into the background. I think this is a nice way of being able to test your ability to have your train disappear into scenery. Because so often in track planes, you'll see, okay, train disappears under an overpass or something into the backdrop. But what does that actually look like? Is it convincing enough? And this, I think this is pretty convincing, especially if we go to town and put in a few more trees. I need to go back to the root layer. A few more trees just to really hide that transition. Might have to shorten that siding a bit just so that it's not quite over by the trees. Excuse me. So if we put a tree here and a tree here, which also helps it to blend in with the backdrop, or the tree backdrop, I think that's pretty convincing. I think that way you're not going to really pay a ton of attention to, oh my goodness, look at this train coming in and out of the scene. Hey, Midland, glad that you could join us. You're volunteering with Friends of the EBT and getting a bunch of friends together on Saturday for a ride and a nice caboose. Well, you have fun with that. You're waiting on Virtual Railroader Academy. You're waiting on your Rapido D10. Me too. I am also waiting on that. I am very much looking forward to having a D10. This, the last, or 2 months ago when we were working on this, we actually played with the D10 on this. And it does fit very nicely. Let's do some cushed bushes. I feel like, since we're here anyway, we're going to do some cushed bushes to kind of... just a couple of small ones I think should do the trick. And yes, I know that saying cushed bushes when cushed is the Polish word for bush is redundant, and I am okay with that redundancy. I'll need to make a good Midwest backdrop for this, because we don't have a lot of farms and fields backdrops in Trainsy. And I know if I put that forest one, it's going to look kind of odd. But we'll put it probably for the part of the show that is... There it is. Coming out of... yeah, not that tall. But if we put it here, going to here, and then we just take it down, then we can see what that actually looks like. We'll use the gas station as our point of transition for the time being. That's not the thing I wanted to bring down. Okay. There we go. Then we'll bring that down to the right height. So yeah, it looks a little bit too woodsy, I will admit. So we'll probably just try to put it for behind the trees here. And I think what we'll do for the time being, till I because the backdrop is, we'll do some... I have to think of the name for this one. I think if I search corn, it'll come up. AVC corn splines, of which we have a few. That's a nice one, but not quite what I'm going for. Yeah, there we go. That'll do the trick. So we'll place that there. I mean, technically the farm's over here and the fields are over there, but we can just pretend that's another farm. I'm going to widen my field of view so I don't keep going behind the backdrop. This junction, I might actually want to tree this in a little bit more. I feel like we get into the more expansive fieldy scenes here. So yeah, let's tree this in a little bit more, because as I said on the tin, my goal with the design is to make it so that you get a nice mixture of different vignettes of scenes. As far as you have a little bit of forest, woodsy, some fields, small town, all in a 5x7 space. A small town outside of this slightly less small town. Mr. Railyard, you would like to see more train simulators do more Canadian stuff. Well, we got you covered here. I agree with you on that. We'll have some fun with some Canadian stuff in a bit. Spectacle, hello. Hey, Nick, I'm trying to start a route for a possible series on trains. It's set in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Any tips for a decent-sized, swampy main yard? So if you're doing something that's freelanced, then research prototypes and determine how much activity you want that yard to have. Also, if there's a history to the yard before the period that you're modeling or replicating, those are probably the things that I would try to take into consideration most heavily. Also going to put down a strip of fascia just because I think we'll want to outline where the scenery ends to. NKP Road 777. How do you get the track plan to lay on top of the route? Program called base maps. You use base maps to import the track plan, and then from that, then you're able to basically connect the dots. And you can see what more of that in the past stream. We might be referencing the track plan a little in this stream, but a lot of what we're going to be doing tonight is about scenery. Although actually we're going to reference it now because we're going to see what the defined edges of the track plan are. And with that in mind, we'll go ahead and we'll lay our facial layer in place so that we know later where we're going to put the dig holes and so forth. So that'll give us some good boundaries. Honestly, sometimes it's good to have rules when it comes to model railroading. I mean, yes, it's nice luxury in a way to model in trains and you go, okay, I can have this be however big I want, which is true, but that's not how it works in real life. And there's a fun kind of challenge to it to say, okay, this is the amount of room I have to work with. What am I going to do with that? I think we'll have it come to about here, and then we'll build across to here. And then, so I'm giving myself a little bit more room than I might. But some of it is just for the sake of the simulation. And let's see. Mr. Railyard, thank you. Virtual Railroad Academy. Gotcha, Nick. Thank you. Harley Memphis fights the fiery smoke. 5. Nick, good to see you again. Good to see you too, Harley, although I'm concerned about your having to fight smoke here. But yeah, so this is an image that another program called Base Maps with a Z at the end converts into an object. You build it into Transient, and then you can just connect the dots. And so now we're using it as reference material for the edges of the fascia. And then we're going to go ahead and align it with the grid in Transient, because if we don't, then we have to use fills to get the scenery to look right, which is doable, but not optimal. So if we put this to about here, we'll be generous to ourselves. I like being generous to myself. We're going to be doing that by way of going to here and then lining it up here. Might have to do some smoothing out of that in the long run. And then line this up here to here. Okay, so that way we have our boundaries in place for when we're doing scenery. How deep can we go? And I might go in a little bit on that because I don't know that I want that to be that thick. But I'm going to worry about that later. Scenery time. And I'm on the right layer now. Okay. We've got this dirt road that crosses the track, and then I want to have a farm lane that comes in off of that road. So we're going to go with CL path or road. Yeah. Here we go. No, they're not that texture. Yeah, we'll use... No, that's paved. Yeah, we'll use this for the time being. Nope. It's know I have other road pictures from him somewhere. Dirt bench. So much of this can be just about finding the right asset. It's like, oh, where's this thing when you need it? Mortgage platforms, gravel pathways. What I'm looking for is a nice dirt road. And see, these are nice paved roads, but not quite what we're looking for. Track. There we go. Call some tracks. Okay. That's what I wanted. And went into here. I feel like we need a garage of some kind or some... Well, I mean, I guess if we have the shed here, I'm probably doing this not quite the way I actually wanted to. But there we go. We need a mailbox. And our rural mailbox. Perfect. There we go. I feel like we need a fence, too. Because it's just so close. And we wouldn't have to have one, but I feel like it's going to look better with one. So let's look at our fence options. Spoiler alert, we do have a ton of them. But let's see what crops up that makes me go, oh. Okay, so that one has a cloth in it for cattle. But if we go just with that, nope, not that one. There. I kind of like that. I do. I think that there's something about the nature of that separation that is nice to have. I don't know if it adds depth or it just adds this sense of, okay, there's this scene over here and there's this scene over here. Because I do want to have some fun with this. And I'm going to take back my field. And by take back, I mean I am going to move it over to here. Because I think this is where we're going to have more of the field in play. Right about there. I think. We'll come back to that later. So we'll put some more trees. I do like this being kind of a nook of a thing. Hello, John Rizzo. Glad you could join us tonight. Oh, Harley, Memphis, battling 500 fires. Oh, in Alberta. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That is a very difficult situation. Did I know that there was NDM stuff on the download station? No, I didn't. Can't say I've been looking for NDM stuff either, but that is still interesting. Okay, let us see. I like it. It's maybe a bit too weathered, but I do like it. Maybe something a little cleaner. I am going for more in its prime. Yeah, we'll go with that. So I want this space, I think if I had a word to describe this region, I want it to feel cozy. Homestead. That kind of feel. Almost want to put a cabin somewhere in here. This is going to be interesting. So we've got this area, which is... Oh yeah, I guess we already have a cabin from... Oh, that's the section house, right. So that's the section house. So I want to build up more of a sense of forest without compromising one's ability, if you were to build this in real life, to reach in there and uncouple cars, because that's kind of important. Maybe one tall foreground tree, but not this one, because then it looks identical to the other one. That's a bit wide. How about... Oh, that's the one we have. And that's super tall. I like that. And that's not going to get in the way of our stack. That's... I mean... It's maybe a bit overpowering. I think something more in the 20-meter range is going to look right. There we go. Yeah. That'll do it. That way, you've got this scenic divider through the curve. Because the challenge with curves is that model railroad curves are always tighter than their real-life counterparts, almost without exception. And so it's always an interesting challenge to make the curve not stand out. And that's something I'm finding even on my own layout, because my own layout has very, as you'll see next month, has some very, very tight curves. And so building them in such a way and thinking about how you place buildings and trees and objects around them so that you're not going, oh my gosh, that is a super tight curve, is an interesting challenge. You kind of have to think of it like an amphitheater. Like the train is presenting to you in a way. Or either the train is presenting to you or you're hiding the curve so that you can focus on two completely different scenes. I saw an updated Emily branch line trains. You're not familiar with that one. I've seen that Paradise Diner in so many routes, Kevin. Yeah, this is my first time using it, so it's a nice asset. Got character to it. I like that. Mr. Railyard, what engines do you think should be made in Trainsy? Oh, I have an answer for this. Delaware and Hudson Challenger. I love the D&H steam locomotives. They are an acquired taste. Some people really think that they look way too weird and unconventional. I love them. And the D&H Challengers are really nice. I think they're really unique. I like them more than the Union Pacific ones. There, I said it. Even with the recessed headlight and everything. The recessed headlight is what makes it. So yeah, that would be my pick. Beyond any shadow of a doubt. Trains Forge, whose stock we're going to be using later for the playtest, they made the Western Pacific Challengers. So maybe someday we'll see them come out with the D&H variety. Okay. Kind of like that crossing. I don't usually go for this one. It's a little bit brighter board texture, but I kind of like it. Something different. So, there's our crossing. Some more trees. I think maybe a little... So I don't know if I want... Do I want trees behind? I really... I'm tempted to put trees behind here. Let's see what that looks like. If we go and just make this go across the whole distance of the thing, what do I think of that? I like that. I know it might not be very Minnesota. Maybe certain parts of Minnesota. But I like that. So I'm going to stick with that. And then we'll put a few more of these trees. I kind of want the... I don't want to block the view of the tracks because it is a junction, but I want to make it feel like a nice cozy scene. Because this, to me, even though you're not going to appreciate the layout from this angle if you were to build in real life, just the idea that you could take your cell phone over, take a picture, and have this really pretty scene. There's something attractive about that. Baudette, for the name of the town, James. Can you give me some story? I mean, I'm not against Baudette, but why should I name it Baudette? Oh, cab forwards. Yes, cab forwards would be nice to see for Trainsy. Somebody made one a while back, but I haven't seen it. Or where one can find it. I need to clear that so I can get... Let's see. And then maybe some... I don't know if I want them too much. Some small bushes around the backdrop, perhaps? That might be the way to go. Yeah, I like that. Let's put a little bit more ballast in. Ballast. And see what we end up doing to give it a little bit, tie the building in a little bit more. There we go. I like that. I also feel like we should probably super elevate, or not super elevate it, but we should have this elevated a bit. Or at least we need to do something with the foreground landscape because it's just a little too flat. I think I'm going to actually place it in a little bit of a valley here. So we're going to have a little bit of hill so that you're looking down into the scene. That feels right to me. I like the look of that. Some grass probably would be a good way to go. I feel like that is the next thing we need. Mr. Railyard, DNH 280s look cool. Agree with you on that. Oh, and you mentioned your choice will be the 2816. Somebody is working on 2816 at Trains Forge. That is an in progress. Yeah, that'll work. Somebody is actually working on a 2816, and I share your excitement about the prospect of having that in game. That is just such a lovely engine. Be great to see it when it goes on the main line next year. Okay. What else do I feel like this needs? Like some grass in here. What else do I feel? Maybe a little bit of... I'm so tempted to put that on a berm, but I just don't think it makes sense here. We're going to do some of that later. Can't help but feel like it's missing something. Maybe a speeder shed. Shed. I feel like there's something missing for my money here. And I'm also cautious about overdoing any particular scene, having too much going on in one place, but I do feel like it could use with a little raison d'etre. Because this almost feels separate from this because of the way that we've put the farm here. Why is there a British signal box? Good question, because I couldn't find an American one super easily. I could do a quick search and see if I have any signal towers that are more American. Yeah, we'll go with this. Not quite. I don't like the design quite as much, but it is admittedly more American. Let's see if I can find something quickly that I'd have on hand anyway. I like that, but that's European. Bridges. Signal shack. Nope, that's for crossings. That's about as good as it's going to get. So, there. Now we don't have a British signal box. I feel odd about it being a brick structure, but I guess that's not entirely out there. I know I have some PRR signal ones. Let's see if I can find that one. There we go. Small block tower. That's what I was thinking of. That might be more the... I mean, now I have to contend with the fact that it very much looks like a PRR cabin, but that at least is more size appropriate for what I'm going for. We'll go with that. 5x7 might be a good size for an N-scale personal model road. That's the idea. This is, I think the article talked about it being in an office. Because the idea is that you'd have your desk underneath the main scene here. But it's compact. I mean, this is... This is the kind of thing that could get me to consider N scale, even though I'd have to have a completely different roster. But even if you scaled it up to HO, it doesn't take up too much space. And I like the simplicity of it. I like the simplicity. I like the fact that, you know, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg because you don't have a million switches. Definitely would be an interesting build. I'm liking how this looks better. Let's get some rails in place. C100, I think, just to get our connecting track in place. And I'm going to want no ballast. And we'll stretch it out just so that it doesn't look weird. And can I raise it up a little bit? I can, but then the rails don't quite make sense. It'll do for now. And car shed. Yeah, now this scene has a little bit more going for it, and I like that there's something for the eye to hold on. And now over here, I'm pretty happy with that too. I'm looking at this space and feeling like, well, do I want to put a tree there? No, because I kind of want to transition. So we have this sort of really nice enclosed forest, dense region, but I want it to start to open up. I'm not quite sure of how we want to do that yet. Maybe a small tree, like a yasin. Maybe a yasin in the foreground. Yeah, I like that. That feels nice. Maybe we'll put some more grass down to get that to look particularly slick. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Grass in the foreground here. Now, this is where I kind of want to put it on a little bit of a elevation. Because I'm mindful of how it transitions from this flat area to boom, there's a creek. Do I want to have that spread out a little bit more? Maybe. Let us see what that looks like if we ease off the... Not ease off, but we just make that a little bit more of a gentle contour. Oh, I should probably turn off the walls because they're a little bit distracting at the moment. Another great element of building in Trains is the ability to turn off on and off layers. Because honestly, that's what a lot of this is about. I mean, number one thing, it's always about having fun. But number two, in Trains is that ability to pre-visualize and just see what we're going to get before we actually try to do it. And if you look at this and go, this looks like a really good way to figure out what I'm going to do for my own train layout. I do take commissions. Go to greattrainlayouts.com and you'll see the link at the top. And I'd be more than happy to help you, whether you just need to figure out the scenery, you already have your track plan, or whether you're looking to have your track plan created. I'd be happy to work with you on either of those things. So, this is looking like what I wanted it to be. There we go. He is figuring out, but that looks sharp. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that, honestly. If we put the sky back in just to kind of appreciate this particular scene. Yeah. Yep. Because this is a great way of transitioning from this forested side into the wide open plainsy side. I think that's a good transition. No pine trees for that Minnesota feel, eh? I could put some pine trees in there. I was actually out in Washington State a month ago. And living in Central Virginia, I'm used to mountains. What I'm not used to is the abundance of pine trees. And so that was a different element of things. Yeah, well, this is kind of a big one. But we'll put it there. There. Now we've got some pine trees. 6-foot corner fence, end of the service station. Not sure what that's referencing. What got me into Canadian railroading? I'll tell you what got me into Canadian railroading, Mr. Railyard. It's not a what, it's a who, and that would be my dad. Because my dad was born and raised in Ontario in the late 50s, early 60s. So that stuck with him into the early 90s when I was born. And so my first model railroading experiences were playing on the layout that he was building using Hornby trying, well, not Hornby. Hornby hadn't bought them yet, or vice versa. Trying Canadian locomotives and cars. And anytime that we went out, there was a particular emphasis on seeing Canadian steam locomotives, like those at Steamtown in Pennsylvania. So it's always been drilled into my head. Even though now I've developed a wide range of interests and so forth, I'm still a sucker for Canadian railroading. Hence, Rapido is very welcome in my stable of locomotives. 6-foot corner fence, end of the service station behind the diner. Okay. Oh, you're suggesting I fence in the diner from the service station. Yeah, we could do that. Let's see what fence would make sense. Ah, that rhymed. Fence mesh. That might be the way to go about it. Yeah. Yep, that has the right look to it. Just a little itty bitty detail. And now, yep, that makes it look better. And we should probably also see if we can find some asphalt so that then it's actually going onto asphalt and not. There we go. That looks right. We'll move the station back a wee speck of a bit. And then we can move the background with it. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay, now for here, we'll need to lower the scenic backdrop, which we can do. We'll probably have to do it anyway because I'm gonna want to do some. I really want to emphasize high iron. Oh, I might have to unlock that layer, right? There we go. Now it's low ground. Looks weird from a distance, so we will just set that as the height for the other side as well. And then it still looks a bit odd, but I don't know that I want to spend time going around and leveling that out now, so we'll take care of that later. Not much I want to do with this other than just add some more grass to the other side. Probably not. Mr. Railyard, could you build your dad's layout and trains, and which railroad do you prefer, Canadian National, Canadian Pacific? I'm a Canadian Pacific guy. I really like their steam. But, oh, could I build that? he does have photos of it, and I have strong memories of it. I think the challenge with it is that the curves on it were super tight, and one of the things I've come to learn with Train Z is that if you're running steam, it's okay with tight curves. With diesel, it gets kind of complainy. It does not like... Oops, those are going to be on the wrong layer. I'll fix that later. But it does not like tight curves. There's a route that I'm working on that's based on a model railroader project build, and it's all these tight curves, and the steam locomotives in Trains you have no issue going through that, but the diesels do. Okay, so here we have a cottage. This is... Okay, let's see what we've got as far as cottages, because I do feel like we've got a little bit of room before our town scene here. I'm inclined to put a field here. So you could see, I'm guessing these lines are supposed to suggest that this is elevated. And I do want to put the track on an elevation through here. So I think what I want to do is I want to have the track elevated so the scenery is down below. We'll have a little bit of fields down there, which will be interesting because of where I put the fascia. And yeah, cottage. Okay, we can do that. We can definitely do that. So yeah, would I... maybe I would build it. Maybe someday I'd build it. Anything's possible. I think it's just... I find myself gravitating... The two types of layouts I want to build are either those that I'm really curious about what they look like or how they would play, or ones that I've experienced in real life, and I say, okay, now I want to own that layout. Off stream, I've been working one in particular that it's probably one of my favorite builds ever. You'll get to see it at some point. It's a British build. It is really funky. It is really, really funky in a good way in terms of how it runs. And that's more of what I'm inclined to focus on than... I mean, I have good memories of that layout, but it doesn't stand out to me as something that I feel I need to build in Train Z. I am actually working on there's an old model railroader, or a layout that was featured in model railroader. I think it's from the 70s. It's an older design, and I started building that because I'm curious as to how that looks. And it's a Canadian Rockies helpers and that kind of thing type of build. Alright, we'll get that roughly squared away to here. Yeah, I know the ballast is 2 different colors, but that is okay. We do what we must. And then we'll build it here to here. Now we can lower the terrain a bit. Obviously, it has to still stay above the height of the water, because otherwise it would be flooding. We can do that. What do I think of the culture and operations of Canadian railroading, like back in the age of steam? I can't say I know as much about it as I'd like. There's a really good film, I should say, that was put out by the National Film Board of Canada back in the 50s, and I think it's called End of Steam. And they talk to railroad crews. There's a cameo by 2816 in there. And I do like that. I like that film a lot, and I think it goes into culture, but I just don't know enough about it to speak to it. That said, and shout out to engineer Professor Casey from the Virtual Railroad Academy. I'm currently reading Set Up Running by John Orr. It documents the life of a Pennsylvania Railroad engineman, and I I am loving it so, so much. It is a really good read. And I feel like, yes, it's about a guy who worked for the Pensy, but there's so much of it that just translates to that era. That book is a vibe, and I am absolutely loving it. So a huge, huge recommendation to that. And thank you to Casey for that gift. That was a Christmas gift, which was very nice. So in terms of getting into the mindset of railroad culture, and this guy was an engineer from 1909 to 1949. It is fantastic. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I like. Maybe it's a little too deep, though. I mean, I like how it looks right here, and then maybe not quite as dramatic afterwards. Yeah, something like that. Because otherwise it looks a little weird. It looks like they build the station on an embankment, and I don't know that I want that. I think that part needs to feel a little bit more level. Ron Paladin. Hey, Ron. And hey, John. Films about Canadian railroads. There was The Railroader with Buster Keaton. Yes. Oh, yes. I grew up with that in my house. That, which I think you could also find that one online for free. That is a great, super funny, super fun film. And this is giving that trains guy. This is giving the final stand of steam in the Midwest vibes like PRR, NKP, New York Central TN. Yep. Yeah, I think you could certainly run this in the diesel era. It lends itself to that well. This is I mean, in a way, I'm kind of glad that it's branded so generically as just transition era CBQ, because I think it lends itself to a wide variety of adaptations, whether it be different railroads or slightly different eras, but it allows you to do a lot. Because even though it's not quite a blank canvas, because obviously they make recommendations about buildings and so forth, but the reality is you can do what you want regardless. I think that's fun. That's what we're doing tonight. We're taking this plan and we're doing our thing with it. Okay, we're gonna need to adjust that background because it does look a little bit weird having that go through the building. So we'll do it through there, and then we'll just kind of skip it and add it to other portions, like here to here. Just to kind of suggest that it goes into the backdrop. And then that farm, which we're going to have a lot of fun with in a moment. I'm torn with what I want to do with this. I did want to put a field. See if I could put corn. Maybe this is what I need. Oh, that is what I was thinking of. Okay. That could... And actually, that's what I was thinking of for the backdrop as well. Because it just looks a little bit more robust than the other one. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Yep. That is what I wanted. We'll put that here, and then we'll delete it over here and add it over here. Definitely want fields. Guess you could say we're having a field day. Field trip. We're going on a field trip. There it is. That's it. Right there. Millennial Modeler looks perfect for Sue, CNWGN. Yep. All of the above. And honestly, so there's a track plan that once I'm done building my Greenfield Village layout, there's another... We're probably going to look at it next month. There's another track plan that I want to build in real life here in my office. And part of what attracts me to it, that was actually not quite an intentional pun, is that it is specific enough that things will look nice going through it, but it's also generic enough that it's not going to scream, oh, I have to be running my CP Steam engines, or even that I have to be running Steam. I want something that's going to allow me to airbend. And I think that's something that I'm realizing about my modeling preferences in general, is that I don't know that I want to model something when it comes to having the big one. I don't know that I want to model something that's going to be really era specific, because I mean, maybe Steam, but I like the ability that if I'm in a diesel mood, I can run some diesels, or even not in a CP mood, and I could run some of my, say, Western New York and Pennsylvania stock. I find that appealing, and so that's something that I'm very this plan attracts me, because I think, yeah, so there are certainly era-specific details you can have in terms of what area your crossbucks are, or cars that you have parked on the road, but it doesn't have to be era-specific. Or you could have your details swapped out, like you could swap out the cars, and that really appeals to me. Because that way, then, if I want to throw some modern diesels on it, well, then I can throw some modern diesels on it. What do I have that's modern diesel? That's interesting. NS. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, random pick. Like, yeah, so having the freight station might kind of date the era of it, but not terribly. I mean, and you could even make it so that you could remove the building, so that way, if you, we just temporarily move this, boom. Like, you could have your base so that you could remove the building, and now it even more looks like modern Kansas. So I'm very much drawn to the idea of, there's certain plans where I think, okay, I do want to do something that's very specific, like Greenfield Village. But there's other ones where I think that I actually prefer the fact that it's not tethered to a specific place or era or so forth. Okay, we're going to blend in this with, that's a little bit too dark. Always an interesting challenge to match. Definitely not that. That's pretty close. We'll use this for the time being. That way we can blend in our spline with the actual track. Good enough for now. Need a haze bumper on that. A similar statement could be said where I live in the Southern and the N&W. N&W have some of the most modern steam locomotives out there, while Southern dieselized. Oh, good evening, J-Train. Glad you could join us. Yes, you could say the freight station is abandoned, John Overman. And that'd be certainly one way of doing it. That feels good. Yeah, I don't... So, this is supposed to be a town. Specifically, what do they name it? Union. There's a lot of unions that are actually very small towns. Despite Union sounding like this, Union, they're really podunk places. And maybe this is one of those cases where the railroad station is like 2 miles from the actual town itself. I mean, we have a little bit with these stores here in the station. I don't know. I don't think I want to do much with it, because I feel like I see what the backdrop looks like, but I don't feel like I want to have more buildings or so forth. We really want this to be a study of contrast, where you've got a lot of activity and a lot of buildings over here and just not as much over there. I'm feeling pretty happy with that. Welcome your feedback, as always. Do let me know what you think of this, but I like that level of detail and activity. So I think we're going to go with that. All right. We are going to paint some road texture in so that that way it doesn't stand out so much. Like so. Nope, wrong texture. That's what I wanted to grab, so that that way... Always challenging to blend these things in with the fascia and make it work off of a grid, but... Then... I want to get a little bit of edge to the highway, like so. That feels good. Let's get the crossbucks in there. We'll just use the same ones as before. Like here and here. And I want to put a car. I want to put a car. We're going to make it 1940s. Something or other. There we are. And this is the kind of thing in Train Z that if I wanted to, I could just put it on a layer. So that that way, if I want to toggle between different eras, I have that capability. There we are. I like that. Oh, and I did some of my... There we go. Yep. Maybe we need to lower the road a little bit. Or... Yeah, I know what I... Let's see what we do here. And then... H. I mean, it looks a little funky, but I'll take it. Okay, this farm. Well, actually, before we get to this farm, this is as good a time as any for the, and now a word from our sponsors, but I do want to thank our sponsor, Bantam Model Works, because they have produced some really great East Broad Top kits. Great kits in general, laser cut kits, but this is their latest offering. This is the blacksmith shop. Here are photos from their website, and the description that they provide for it is in one of my tabs. So they write about it, adding to our growing line of East Broad Top yard structures at Rock Hill Furnace. Photos show the blacksmith shop from the north and south, showing the tank on the north side and utility shed on the south. The kit is composed of a laser cut MDF core overlaid with board and bat siding, a rather unique building with a different siding, or with the different siding styles. So that is something that, and the thing that I like about it is that it's a blacksmith shop, but honestly, you could say it's an industry for your railroads. You don't have to be modeling EBT to find a way to incorporate something like that on your layout. In fact, as I said, for this build, we've got it right over here serving as a sort of some kind of plant or factory of some type. So if that, they've got buildings for HO, they've got buildings for N. You can check out what they have on offer by clicking the link in the description. Now back to this farm. So if we go to our... Oh, I forgot about the cottage. I did. Let's see if we have a nice little cottage I can put on the corner there. Because I do like the idea of a cottage that'd be next to the stream. That does seem pretty. So let's see what we can do on that particular front. We have a lot of larger cottages. British. Very British cottages. I almost want a log cabin. I mean, I could see doing brick, but that... I don't know. It looks cool, but not the right building for this particular region. Railway cottages too. Maybe we should search for cabin. That might yield a more North American result. Oh, there we go. Backwoods cabin. Yeah. I like that. A little detail, little something for there that I think adds nicely. And then we should also put some dirt to transition into the field, like so. There we are. I like that. I am happy with that. We'll need to play around with the fascia height later. But now, yeah, that is a scene that I consider done. So, switching back to the track plan, we have... So this looks like on Ian's original plan, this actually does have a little bit more forest and building in. I'm going to try not, because I feel like I always gravitate towards forests. But I do want to try... We can clearly see that there's an idea of putting this on a berm. I think that's a good idea. Especially because then by way of having that falling off... so when the slope goes down into the... If I can move my hand the right way. Goes down to the background. I think that's going to look particularly nice. So let us put that on a super elevated berm. Like we did for over here. Oh, we should also... turn that layer off. And clear that out. Let's see if I have any skinnier embankments, though. I forgot I had that one with that coloration, but I don't think that... No. That's not the color I want to go with for this project. Let's see. Too wide. Oh, this will work. Actually, this probably fits the track texture better than the other one did, but we'll worry about that other one later, if at all. And so we will get that straightened out. We will get that affixed to the height it is at so that it doesn't do funky things once we lower the terrain. And obviously we're going to have the terrain come up by the time we come to the roundhouse. Separating the roundhouse from these buildings is going to be an interesting challenge. Because right now it does feel like here you have a roundhouse, and here you have a house, and here you have a barn, and I don't like the uniformity of that. We are going to try to do something about that uniformity. Partially by way of landscaping. Now this feels like a good place to have a super elevated curve. Or not, well, actually, I misspoke, but now that I've misspoken, I think, well, maybe that would be a nice place to have a super elevated curve. Speaking of super elevated curves, piece of good news that I want to share with you guys is... Well, before I do that, let me make sure I'm up on the comments. I've wondered if you could model, or if I could model a border crossing HO scale like between Canada and the US. Sure you could. Might be some interesting operational elements to that as well in terms of customs and so forth. But the good news I have to share is that a Great Train Layouts Live is once again going to be featured in Railroad Model Craftsman magazine in an upcoming issue. I think it's for the September issue, so it should be coming out soon. So maybe a month from now I'll be able to point to it and say, here's this thing that I wrote. But it is an article about what we do here on the show, about pre-visualization, talk about some of the previous project layouts we've done, including the Commonwealth Railway Yoho sub and the Conrail P&L secondary. So it's an honor to be once again featured, and especially to be carrying the torch as far as talking about train simulators, because it is this really fascinating field that I feel like now more and more people with all the the new games that come onto the scene. Every new game, it gains a little bit more credibility, and I try to do my part for that by way of what we do here on the live stream. So check it out on newsstands probably within the next month. And you also get to see some sneak images of things that I haven't live streamed in a while, like where I'm at with the BC Rail Tumbler Ridge project. Let's try extending that the distance. I'm curious. I don't know if it'll look right or not, but we're gonna try it. Yeah, I like that. So we're gonna need to lower the foreground and the fascia with it just to make that look right. There we go. Interesting. And then the one reason I think I am going to do some, I am going to play some amount of triage, whatever you want to call it. Some foliage is because we do need something to divide those two. And it could just be a simple matter of, okay, let's place some fields not in this haphazard manner. I don't know if I totally hate that. I might actually like that. I'm trying to think, too, of the transition. So we've got this road that disappears. I'm trying to think of the transition in that case as well. That looks better. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is lower it so it goes like that. And then I want to put that on a berm of its own. If we put it on a... Ooh, yeah. That's the embankment for that. So if we put the embankment here... And then... Oh, except it's going to have to be flush with the scenery, right? Oof. Because if I put it here, then it sticks out from the fascia. Bummer. I might have another embankment, though, that I could use for this. Yeah. That. I don't know if I'll use that texture, but here's what we're gonna try. It's skinnier, so if I have it going from here to here, that's pretty good in terms of its thickness. And then how do I wrap it up? Straighten that out. Actually, that could work better than I thought it might. We do like that. Interesting challenge. Maybe more complication than it's worth. We'll just do it the old-fashioned way. But we could put some grass there to hide that too, I'm thinking. Back to the grasses. And use that as our sort of initial scenic divider until... Because I'm trying to figure out if I like having the... or no, I shouldn't have it do that. I don't know if I like having the corn go around the corner, because then you have this sort of straight edge with this curved embankment. But maybe the thing to do is, again, I'm really trying to push myself from falling back on trees. If we have to, we will, but I'm more a fan of the idea that just even by nature of having a field, we kind of draw this separation between the two. Maybe we put a tree here. Maybe that's the compromise. Well, we could put a tree, but honestly, we should have some kind of shop building. What kind of shop building? Oh, I know. No, not that. I think that's going to be too big. Not this version of it, but I actually maybe want to do that as... Oh, yeah. Yeah. Which I like because then from the background... I mean, obviously the roundhouse is the roundhouse, but... that blends well. I dig it. We'll just fill in the valley with grass then. I think that's going to make the greatest degree of sense. And here to here to here to here to here. And see how that looks. Let's see. Am I trying to do too much? I mean, I've got this road that then turns to grass, that then turns to field. Am I trying to do too much in one scene? Yeah, there's something about the field that looks too small. I think I might have to go with grass, or trees. Please tell me if I'm over defaulted to trees. But I don't think I am. I think I like having... And we'll even make it an elk. Nah. Not that much. But maybe a couple. And then we'll put a couple of deciduous trees in the mix. Maybe a couple of small BUKs. Like so. No, not digging that. Maybe some cusps. Oof. I mean, I like it as sort of a family farmstead tree. I actually like that a lot. But, in terms of these... I just need one more. Just give me one more where I can look at it and go, yeah, that is what should be there. I keep finding these things where I'm like, well, that looks good over there. That could do the trick. Scenically a little different from the forest we have on the other side. I could dig that. Thoughts, comments, opinions. What are you guys thinking as you see this? As I say, I'm trying to not overpower it with greenery. I just want enough stuff going on that I look and go, yeah, that feels like a good amount of visual activity. That feels right. Yep, I like that. Because now we have this nice sort of picture book effect with the with the farm here, where it really feels like this scene is kind of leading in. I realize I'm getting dark because I didn't put my overhead light on. Hold on 1 second. There. Now you can actually see me again. All right. So, that looks like a nice presentation. Let's put some super elevation in that curve too. Oh, right, other question mark. Because I think some super elevation is really going to make that pop. As far as having a good sense of just the right amount of visual drama. But even if it's a branch line, you have plenty of branch lines that have that sense of... Yeah, one already has it. We'll put some in here. Okay, now let's see if I place the train. If it... I think the super elevation's in there, but let's see. Oh yeah, it's subtle, but it's there. Maybe we'll... Do I want to up the drama a bit? Yeah, I want to up the drama a little bit. We'll make it more like 5. So these numbers I'm plugging in now are just numbers to describe how much super elevation should be applied in the curve. And, oh, that was interesting. There we go. So, little bit more. So if we put the engine on there now. Yeah, I think that's a good amount. I don't want it to be too much, but you can see it leaning ever so tastefully on its side. Let's have some more fun super detailing this. This is going to be... I want some type of grass dirt mixture for this, I think. Something like this. Yeah, that looks nice. That looks right. Oh, and we'll get that corner taken care of. I don't know about you guys, but I am really happy with how this is coming together. We're doing pretty well for ourselves. I'd say we'll be going back to Relish for a moment shortly, and then be able to do some finishing touches there. And we could have ourselves a completed layout that we could have some fun on. This has been a good build in that regard. So, do I want to do? Oh, a tire suede. I wonder if I have tire suedes. That would be interesting to see. How about just a swing? I'll settle for a swing. Ooh, a porch swing. Can I attach it to the tree? I could if it had a lower... But I'll put it on the actual porch. Not the right height, but it does stick through the roof. Oh well. Nice idea. Swing set. Maybe. I don't know if I want them to be that color. There we go. I mean, you'd have shade from the tree anyway, but there. Just a nice little detail. Maybe a tractor. A doghouse. I wonder if I can put a doghouse in here. Yes! I can put a doghouse. Although that's maybe a bit far from the human house. There we go. We'll put it behind the house. Probably should put it at 360 because it'll be doghouse. There we go. Now can we place a dog? Becomes the question. Animal dog. Yes, we've got a dog. Oh, look, it's cute. Hard to zoom in on the guy, but we have a dog at a doghouse. I like this. I like this a lot, actually. This is a nice one. I think I want to put some kind of grass to ease the transition between the super elevator, the embankment, and the curve. But let's see how that looks. And change the elevation like so. Yeah, we can just play around with. Nah, that kind of does it in. I'm not a fan of that. Yep. That is what I wanted. That is exactly what I wanted. If we get rid of this wall for a moment, just so we can see it more clearly. Yeah, that is a nice scene right there. I like that. That really came alive. See, that's the thing when you pre-visualize. So, as much as and Iain Rice's track plans are great, and some of them he actually does illustrations, but this one doesn't have one. So you're looking at it and you're going, okay, well, that it's a corner and there's a farm and that's what's there. But there's a difference between seeing that as a two-dimensional drawing and being able to look and actually see what it looks like when you've got the dog and the doghouse and the farmhouse with the farm. Feel free to leave your name suggestions for the dog. I don't know that I can really actually label anything with the dog, but we can take solace in knowing the dog has a name. But we've got the dog, we've got the swing. We make this feel lived in. I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy with how this has turned out overall so far. Like that is good. So, last but certainly not least, we are going to turn our attention to finishing off the engine terminal in this area here. Let's see. So, I'm cheating a little bit. I've made the fascia come out a little bit wider. I have to from a cosmetic standpoint because of the way that the turntable pit works. So, in the spirit of not adding too much, I mean, you could add to the scene. You're not really taking away from it too much for the spirit of the thing by adding maybe a building. What kind of building do I want to add? Let's see what my man Rico has built, because Rico has some nice buildings. That maybe there's something I can plunk down in here and go, yes, that is the thing to put there. Equipment and car. I mean, it fits. It's just a little bit too elaborate for my taste. I don't know. Maybe I'll just leave it open for the sake of not feeling the need to have to fit it with something. That could be the way to go about it. I'm not sure what I should put there since it doesn't really have anything there. Let's just do some grass. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of negative space, as long as you're positive about it. What does that mean? I don't know. But if it has meaning, I'm glad it has meaning. Maybe delete that. Yeah, I can live with that. I think that's good because then we're not making that scene seem too cluttered. So this, is there anything I want to do with this other than maybe place a workman down just because it feels like a case of why not. Oh man, if you grew up with Thomas, how about having this guy down for a workman, eh? Not quite the vibe we're going for in this build, mind you, but he looks a little too British. All these flat caps. A little too British. But then again, I don't know, something appealing about that. I'm gonna go with that guy. That guy looks cool. Adding a hobo to the layout. I wonder if I have any. Let me see if I can download one relatively quickly. Because if I could get one with relative ease, then sure. Going to do a little bit of grocery shopping here in the window that you can't see. And see if there are hobo characters. There are, although they're from 2004, which means they're going to be kind of flat and ergo not realistic. No, I'm not. Surprisingly, I'm not seeing any hobo, so we'll just have to make do with the work one. And let's get some dirt so that we can make that a little bit of a smoother transition. That looks a little bit nicer. Okay. We're going to need to do some adapting. I could just put a ton of grass in here and call it, but I think I actually want to bring the fascia a little bit closer to the edge. So, to do that, and then to keep the grid in place, we're going to switch to the facial layer, unlock that. We're going to add 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, straight curve. Straight curve. And I want it to be in line with... Sure, we'll put it in line with here. And that will be straight as well. And then same with the section house. I basically want it to come just in line with the section house here. And straighten that piece out. In and maybe one more. We'll bring it really close to the track. Since I'm taking my liberties on the other side, we'll make this one a little bit... Oh, shouldn't. Maybe we'll just bring it in like so. And then we'll just put grass in front of it. Then it's not quite as empty as it would be. I think that's what I want to do. We will take a look at that and see if, in fact, that is what I want to do. Yeah, makes it a little less open and barren. So, switching back to the right layer before I put that all on the wrong facial layer. Grass, just tons of grass here. I might even use turf effects later, but for now, that looks good to me. Then here, same thing. Just a lot of grass. I see a little bit of open spot where I should put. Add a little bit more of a different kind of green to this part. Just vary it up. And then forest grass 15. We'll go with a wider swath for here because I have the room for it. So yes, I'll admit I wish trains did corners with a nicer ability to round off the edges and so forth. That is, it is possible. It's just usually more work than it's worth because then you have to, you don't get you have to make a flat texture. And I do want to add a little bit of undulation to the land so it's not 100% flat, because otherwise it just looks really obviously flat and dull. And that is not what we were going for. Alright. But we are getting there. I am pretty happy with that, all things considered. So, what else do I think we are needing at this point? I think what's going to be good about today is that we'll actually have time that you can see me do the dig holes, because the one thing that's been bothering me is this giant open area we have in the middle. It's really distracting. So I actually want to show you the process of making dig holes in the floor so you can see more of the finished product. So I think that's what we're going to do next, because this probably needs touch-ups here and there, including that. That's also bothering me, is how that just disappears. And I think, yeah, there we are. That's why it just disappears. That looks better. Okay, so here we are, the pretty much completed state of the layout as is, scenically speaking, where we've got our nice forested area with the junction, our diner, gas station scene with the main highway, little trestle going into some farmland with Union / Williamsport, depending on which sign you want to believe. And then we've got probably my favorite seat of this build. And I thought my favorite seat was going to be the signal box. But the adding a flag. I could add a flag, but where do you want me to add a flag to? Plants and bushes around the layout. Well, we have a bunch of those already. Not sure where you mean specifically. Old man with a... Oh, Roscoe the dog. Okay, yes. The dog's name is Roscoe. I dig the dog's name. But this, I think, became my favorite scene. I was expecting it to be the signal box, but this is what I call the magazine cover shot. This is the one that you send to Railroad Model Craftsman. And you could just... why am I not being able to place it? Probably because the switch is set or something. There we go. Like, that just feels so right on so many levels. Oop. Had a momentary freeze there. Thinking maybe I should save right now while the going is good, so that I don't find myself with all this work having been for nothing. That makes me happy. That looks proper. That looks good. Okay, so since we've got a little bit of extra time before playtime, I'm going to show you guys what we're going to do so that we can go from making this look like some sort of odd virtual space into an actual room with an actual floor and the fascia looking right. We're going to do all that, because then when it comes to playtime, it's going to look good. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the dig holes. Can you dig it? I hope you can, because we're going to add the dig holes. So dig holes are these objects which aren't objects. They're anti-objects, if you want. So it is something that I am placing into the world, but it removes ground tiles. The original function of them was so that when you built a tunnel, you didn't see the land blocking your tunnel portal. You could actually see into the tunnel while going underground. But that function has since been co-opted so that one can now just place these dig holes like so. The advantage of that being that then you can just create holes in the earth, which is what we want to do today. We are creating holes in the earth, because that way we can put in an actual floor. Once we get the right, I guess that is the right position. And then like so. Now we can actually see the fascia and what it's doing. And let's see. I put these on odd angles, which I kind of wish I had it done. Is that going to skunk me as far as how the corners work? could. So I think I'm going to give myself a little bit extra room on the fascia. So I have to get these lined up in a particular way so that they remove correctly. I can't put the fascia in the middle, otherwise part of the land will be visible and part of it won't. Oh, and I see I extended my river kind of into that tile anyway, so then it kind of works out regardless. So now, when I remove my final batch of dig holes over here, it's going to line up properly. So 4x8, we place here, and here, and here, and here. And voila. Now, to compensate for this extra room that we didn't think we had, all we got to do is just switch back to our main root layer, and we're just going to place a second strip of this, and then we're going to lower the terrain so that it's not funky, because right now it is very funky. What is the terrain down there? I get 1.48. Okay. We'll turn the sensitivity up on that. Somehow I don't think I have all of this at the right height. I feel like it's going up. No, 1.5 is the lowest it goes. Okay. And we're just going to take all that down, about that height, and then we're going to tell it to delete its grade information so that hopefully it just contours to the land. Because right now it's kind of hovering. And it might be hovering because of the dig holes. So dig holes, the one downside with them is they do some odd things, is the best way I could put it. There are some odd behaviors when you use dig holes. And you just kind of have to accept that that's part of it and learn to work around them. But there we go. I'm happy with that. So that edge is clean. Now we need to clean up this side. And this side also has some interesting bits. I think I'm going to actually end up moving this out, that out, and that in. And I think that's how we will do it. So switching back to the fascia, switching back to the grid view. Now this is something that if you were using TrainZ to design your model railroad, do you have to do? Well, of course you don't have to. I really like doing it because it adds a layer of polish so that when I'm playing with it, I'm not distracted by the gray grids. So I'm a big fan of it. I try to add it for all of my layouts. The only layouts that I don't do this approach for is there's a couple of layouts where rather than model the centers just empty, I'll actually fill it with a forest or something, so you still can't see other scenes within the layout. It's not an approach I use a lot. It's something I've kind of moved away from, but my first TrainZ layout, the Susquehanna in New York, I used on that, and I was really happy with how it turned out for that project. It's just a different way of doing things. And that's the thing, is that everybody, when it comes to how to build a TrainZ layout and what they do, has a different approach. And that's the fun of it, is that there's just so many different ways you could go about building a layout. This is just what I find is aesthetically pleasing. I just find it satisfying for me. Flag by the station? Yeah, we could put a flagpole. I like that idea. So we are now going to distinctly make it American by adding an American flag. But this is the Minnesota Northern after all. So there we go. I actually like that. I think that it gives a little bit of visual interest to the platform, which admittedly is a bit otherwise touch empty. I'm also going to see if I could get rid of those concrete lines to make that a little less distracting too. That one might be unavoidable, but I should be able to... There we go. Interesting when you try to jerry-rig stuff to do things it wasn't designed to do, whether or not you succeed in making it do what you wanted. Okay. Back to dig holes. Oh, which means now I put the flag on the fascia layer. So we go back to that, say, Mr. Flag, you are not a fascia object, you are a root object. Do the layers matter? Sometimes it depends on if you foresee toggling things on and off. It's the type of thing I do just because there's always the chance that it could matter, but admittedly, sometimes it matters more than others. There's one route that I've built recently. I don't know. Maybe I'll show it next stream. It doesn't really tie in with the Greenfield Village one, but I'm just so excited to show it to you guys that I probably am going to do it anyway. And that one, keeping track of the layers absolutely mattered. It mattered very, very heavily because you actually, part of how you play with it involves toggling layers, to say nothing of how it was built. It was... I kind of went crazy on it. And you're going, but Nick, you always go crazy on these builds. But that is true. That is true. But I went particularly crazy on this one. I don't know. Maybe I'll tease it later for you guys. What do you think? You want to see it at the end of the stream? Nah. Gotta have something to show. Well, I'll have a lot to show next month. I feel like next month is going to be kind of show and tell. You're going to get to see the layout I'm designing as I designed it in the sim. Hopefully figure out a way to show you in real life. I don't know if I'm going to have to pre-film segments, which is work, or whether I could just set my camera. Because the webcam, you're not going to see it really well. If I could figure out a way to input one of my other cameras in, maybe we'll go about using my camera plugged into the computer to show you what's going on. Okay. There's our fascia. It is in place. It allows us to go, that is not distracting. Need a 48-star flag. You're right, Ron. I don't know if I have one, though. Nor do I know if one exists readily. So I'm going to be like Oppenheimer, and I'm going to have a 50-star flag, even though it should be a 48. Let's get this area fixed up a little bit, too, so that our stream doesn't just magically stop, but instead we've got this continuing off to the edge. Oh, wait, I clearly didn't use the right terrain height for that. There we go. We'll get that going all the way down, and then like so. So this is what I mean by that strange dig hole behavior. You see, this grass is supposed to be contouring to the landscape, and yet, for some reason, it's decided to climb the wall. An invisible wall, for reasons I can't figure out. So, we have to manually go in there and fix that height. Oh, speaking of which, I think it's on the wall layer. Yep. Speaking of getting them wrong, but we'll make that work. Okay, so that... Oh, and I see, I'm going to have to move that, because you can't just have that hovering that way. So there's two ways splines behave in Train Z. Either they contour the landscape, or they go with the specific heights that you set. Sadly, you can't mix the two, but it does sometimes make for some awkward route building elements, or where you just have to go in and do more work than you prefer to. But I think we could get around that by way of going back to getting the grass and going back to the root layer, and then we'll just place some grass around here where it isn't going to run into the issue with the walls like that did. Oh, and you can see it here too on this side where some of the grass is hovering towards the end. So what we'll do is we'll move that grass back to where it's not going to have that kind of issue. And then we'll place new grass going along here, and we'll set the height on it so that it can't decide to do strange things. It can try to do strange things. We're just not going to allow it to do the strange things that it wants to do. So yeah, doing dig holes definitely adds work, because you have weird stuff like this that crops up that I really wish... Maybe Surveyor 2 will fix that in Train Z. But until that day, you just sort of learn to work with it and go, okay, this isn't optimal, but I am going to try my best to kind of sort of make this work. Because the problem is then you see these shadows that it casts. I'm honestly going to just try to adapt the land to the grass in this case. Because I just don't want to be bothered. Okay, that works enough. And then, let's see, if I put grass here, we still have some weird hovering behavior. Like, sometimes it hovers, sometimes it goes underground. Like, you just get weird things that make you go, why? But we will do our best to combat that. I suppose I could also combat that by putting some bushes and things where the tops are a bit rounded. And sometimes that's the key to it, is you just find a tree and you go, hello, Mr. Tree, you're now a bush. Or plot of grass or something. And that way you kind of hide the bald spots. The only key is that then, if it's too tall, you do see the trunk under the ground. Or you see the side sticking out from the fascia. So, okay, we got to move that. We got to move it up just enough that it's not going to be blocking the view. I could go for that. I could go for that. Can we get a wigwag for crossing? Do I have any wigwags? Maybe? So, yes. The question becomes, how is it activate? It might be a TRC element. It's a ATS element. Okay, so I'll tell you what. I'll put in a wigwag. I don't want to take time right now to get it operational, because I think that's just going to be too complicated. But for the final video, yes, I will. Or for when it gets released, I will make the wigwag operational. The reason being that it's been a while since I've used an ATLS setup, and I don't want to do it wrong, and I don't want to screw it up. So for now, static objects, but there you go. That trains guy, wigwags for the crossing. Oh, and I clearly need to adjust the height of that spline a little bit, because it's looking a little odd at the moment. We'll get the height of that one, set that to the same height, make sure they're all at the same height, and there we go. Okay, so dig holes are in place, fascia is in place. Coming up on our 2-hour mark, which means we're going to be play testing this soon. So now we're just going to go basic on this. So the thing that you're going is, okay, that's a lot of sky, and that is. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that by making it into floor. And as you'll see, Train Z offers us choices of floor, and if you like 3D modeling or even just retexturing, you can make your own kinds of floor. So we can make it just some linoleum tile, we can make it a nondescript carpet, a slightly more descript tile. I don't use this one that much. I'm going to use this one. So we're going to set the height in meters for negative 105 meters. Which then, there's our floor. But Nick, you say, oh my goodness, it's looking better, but it's also still looking weird. And I agree with you. The walls are next. TMR walls. So this is a great way of being able to just kind of remember what you put where. MRR wall. Actually, I think RC wall is what I want to go for. So do we want blue Or do we want white? This, again, is where the pre-visualization benefits are real, because let's say you haven't painted your walls, or you're considering repainting them, and you want to go, well, do I want to make them blue to kind of emulate sky even beyond what my backdrop is? Or do I want to go with white because I'm renting a property and I can't paint my walls? Which means you don't have a choice. But still, it can kind of tell you how it's going to look if you can't. I want to go blue. That's what I'm going to do. So all we got to do that case. Why are we looking at two different shades of blue? Good question. Simple answer, because of the sunlight. You've got the sunlight facing here. It is not facing there. Sometimes I love Trainsy's lighting, but there's times when I wish you could place objects that didn't react to the light, so that way you could just place an object and it will look uniform, especially with backdrops. When I have created backdrops, I have to make them, especially if it's double-sided, like say for a Kootenai like navigation company, I have to make the backdrop so that it one side is brighter than the other, so that they look about the same based on how the light is behaving. But I don't think it's an overly distractional. And, you know, the other approach to building this layout is, rather than having your backdrops and your walls and so forth, you could always just choose to model distant scenery, or just have it be green and see the background sky, which is what we had before we put all of this into place. It's all about the approach you want to take. I'm putting walls just because you usually don't get to see this part of the show. I'm glad that I get the opportunity to show you that today, because I do think it's kind of nifty. And just going to make sure they're all at the same height, so that way the trim matches on the bottom. So there you have it. Walls, floor. Nick, how does somebody get into this room? Good question. I don't know. And for the sake of this build, I'm not going to worry about that at this moment. I feel like that's a case where, okay, yeah, so we built it this way, partially because I don't think his plan showed any door entry point. I think the assumption is that you would have, like, maybe your door's over here. So maybe this is a swing gate, or a duck under or something. Or a drawbridge style. I think it really depends on what you would build it up to. Maybe you build it high enough that you could duck under it. Or lift out section. So yeah, we are having a room with no doors. So a nightmare unless you are a model railroader. Take it or leave it. Last step, we're going to put in a ceiling on this guy, just because, why not? Rope ladder. There you go. I like that. I do like that. Yes, a rope ladder. So you come directly down. You're airlifted by helicopter. I could definitely dig that. Okay. So for the ceiling, these are splines that will hopefully not cast shadows. We're just going to place 2 of them and try to have them... Well, it doesn't matter if they overlap, because, I mean, you're not going to really see much of the ceiling anyway. You're looking at the ceiling. If you're analyzing the ceiling, I've probably done it wrong, so to speak. And then we'll put it that height. Oh, this ceiling casts shadows. Tisk tisk. That's another thing. So that is a fixable thing, so you have to go into the asset and tell it to not cast shadows. Let me see if I have another ceiling that doesn't cast shadows, though. We've got a black ceiling. Does that cast shadows? That also casts shadows. EMMR ceiling panels. Okay. That is not casting shadows. So here we go. So we've got our 2 spline objects. We place them like so. And then we'll just set the height to such. And then, ta-da! Our train room. But Nick, what is that? That is called Z fighting. So that's where you have two objects at the same exact height and the game doesn't know which element to process, so it kind of glitches between the two. Simple fix to that, we're just going to set off one of them by a centimeter, and that's all we have to do. We just tell it to go up a centimeter, and look, the Z fighting is no more. And here is our model railroad in its complete state. Pending maybe doing some background work. That's a time contingent thing. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But now you get to see from start to finish the whole process of what I do when I'm building a trains layout. So ordinarily you get to see just the track plan at work, but this time we had some nice time to be able to work on this bad boy and really get the whole thing polished up. So now you can see the whole thing proper. So if we quickly, so we're going to save it because Lord knows I usually don't save this enough. So we quickly pop over to play mode and just take a look without all the distracting menus and UIs. We can now take proper stock of what we see here. And I'm very happy with that. I welcome your feedback as always, and maybe you are seeing something that I am not, but to me, this feels like a very doable layout. You're talking about 5 by 7 feet. That's not a whole lot of room. Heck, a 5 by 7 foot room, you couldn't even fit a 4 by 8 layout in a 5 by 7 room. Yet here you are being able to fit an entire branch line or main line or whatever you want to classify it as with a main town that gives you all these switching opportunities with, oh, oops. I see some textures, that a little bit of remaining grid. But with this little Union Station here, as well as this scene with the diner, and we've got the junction. I mean, there's a good amount of what we have going on here that will hopefully result in a good amount of play. So, and I think that, so last time we did a lot of mainline stuff, and I think we'll open with that just to kind of do a visual inspection of what we've created and make sure that we're happy with what we see. And then we'll set ourselves up for a local, stage some cars at random on the industries and work it properly. Mr. Railyard, I'm thinking about doing a non-profit club in Northern Michigan, which is dedicated to the live Steam hobby, and the suggestions and advice. My advice would be join a club before Form 1. If you're going to forming a non-profit isn't the hardest thing in the world, but it is still work. So I would not, if you've never been a part of organizing a nonprofit, if you've never been a part of a board, don't make that your first step. Like, start with being a part of an organization and learning the ropes before you go and form one. That would be my main advice, is don't jump into it readily, because there's a lot that goes into a nonprofit. Doesn't matter if it's live Steam, like, just, and make sure you have people to do it with, who ideally some of whom have done it before. Those are my pieces of advice. Okay, so with that in place, let us let's have some fun. Let's start with appreciating some nice Trains Forge Minnesota Northern equipment, and let's have some fun. We'll just run that around for a little bit and kind of take stock of what we've built, and then we'll get into some of the switching. Again, for those who weren't part of the stream earlier, the reason we've got all these buildings in the backdrop is because we're using them as flats. I'll probably later modify this and build the staging a little further out, but this gets us up and running. The trains aren't going to care that the buildings are in the way. So with that said, let us go. And tell me if the sound is overpowering as far as the balance of my voice in the game. Because honestly, I'm going to turn down the volume on my end, because I can't hear myself good. Okay. You guys tell me if it's too loud, not loud enough. In the meantime, we'll get underway. So this is available on Trains Forge. There's a few different packs of equipment for the Minnesota Northern, and we'll take a look at some of their branch line suited packs in a moment. First, I'm going to make sure all my switches are set because, as you guys know, I get to talking and then I forget that I haven't set my switches correctly, and that becomes a bit embarrassing. Right, and then we'll set that for the main. All right, I think I've got everything set. And I feel like this is a good size to kind of pretend that we're looking at an N scale train. An N scale steam locomotive that just so happens to have a smoke unit in it. Oh, I have to turn off the traffic. I just saw a car whiz through the grade crossing. Edit route. No, that's going to be edit environment. We want to turn the cars off. Back to playing. This is a nice layout too. If you're a person who likes your streamliners, you like your big passenger trains, this is a pretty sizable mail train that we've got right here. And so being able to have this big space that we can work with is really quite nice. And now I need to set that switch so that when I come back around, if I can set that switch, I'm going to need to move that switch so that it doesn't overlap in the turntable. Put it like so. There we go. I might have to think through the placement of that. So this set is available on Trains Forge now, and you get the mountain locomotive. You've got all these different types of mail and baggage express cars. The steam locomotive does have a full interior, as you can see here. If I can stay inside it for a moment. So if we want to go down and be the size of an N-scale person, this is what it looks like. You can appreciate how dramatic our super elevation is at N-scale. And we'll get set up to appreciate the trestle scene. We'll do a station stop this time at the passenger station. Even this junction scene, that turned out really nice. That looks good. And we'll go down to N scale level so that we can watch as our passenger train comes in. Oh, like right here. There we go. We'll make sure we get spotted so that we can refuel with water. There we go. Perfect. So this becomes a good meeting point so that if you wanted to run a train in the other direction, if you want to simulate mainline operations or just a very busy branch line, then you could have trains meet here, which gives you something to do operationally. I think if you're doing mainline meets, you really want at least one place where you're going to be able to have your trains meet. I mean, two is nice if you could do that, but just somewhere on the where you could have a train stop waiting for another train departs. Or should we turn the? Nah, we'll keep the train going in the same direction. I was tempted to turn it around, but I think we'll do that with our local run. And we'll set our switch so that we go back into staging. And make sure that we're not going to go into the dead end siding there. Good. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need to adjust that staging. But here we are going past our engine facility. Never nice results. I hope you mean never not nice results. So, to my Midwestern audience, I hope that I got the feel of this right. I hope that this. Let's do something fun. Let's get set up for a crossing shot here. I hope that this evokes where you live, or maybe where you used to live if you don't live in the Midwest anymore. But this is a fun one. This is something where, and I feel like the base elements of it are really strong, so you could adapt it in so many different ways. But if you want just good mainline run, this is a really good plan for that. And there we go behind staging as the train disappears behind the backdrop. Oh, very good, Ron. Glad to hear that they're very nice results in your book. Okay, so that was our fast freight. Now let's do some local switching. Let's put the switching to the test because as you might recall from part one, if you watched part one, is we've got we ended up paring down the industries a bit because it just felt like we have so much here. So if we go back, let's turn off the ceiling so we can poke our head up without seeing white. So if we go back to the track plan, you've got things that aren't labeled on this track plan because I cut them off. So I'm going to go into the a separate window and bring up the actual track plan. And then I can tell you what those industries are in the list. This is the Minnesota Northern. Okay. So if we bring up the full track plan, we've got from left to right, there's a feed mill, industry, whatever that is, wood grain elevators, freight house, meat packing plant, coal silo, coal storage bins, oil depot, storage tracks, and a concrete grain elevator. All super packed in Amersfoort. And if we hide the route, you'll be able to see those more clearly. Oh, some of those I put on the wall layer. So if we hide the route layer and the wall layer, okay. So now you can really see all of these industries packed. And the only thing that bothers me about this plan as drawn is just that is such a large amount of industry. I think you kind of maybe take away from the ambience of it being a small town. It really depends. If this is a big city and you want that level of industry, go for it. So what we're gonna do is just say there's not quite that level of industry. We've got something here which I'm probably going to service with an empty flat car. We've got some kind of mill over here, freight house, one grain elevator, but one that could take a multitude of cars. Well, two grain elevators. So we've still got the two grain elevators. Ergo, you could have a lot of grain coming in and out. I think that I like the idea that that is the bias of things. Oh, and cold storage bins and an oil depot. So we still have, I'd say, about 2/3 of the industries, but it just doesn't feel as hectic. So let us do some random staging of stuff. So first we're going to bring in our power. Well, we'll save the power for that. So that's the most exciting bit. We're going to put some boxcars on the sidings here. Because boxcars, believe it or not, actually did haul grain back in the day. And we're going to say grain is a big deal, so we're just going to have a ton of boxcars coming in and out. That we'll just have 3 for each section. I'm going to randomize whether or not we do coal or oil. I've got a dice here, a die. So 1 through 3, no coal. 4, 5, 6, coal. 3, no coal. Oil. No oil. Going easy on ourselves, I guess. Freight station. We should probably have something coming in and out of there. We'll put... we've got a lot of boxcars already. Though not unrealistic. Yeah, we'll put a boxcar here, because why not? What else could we put here that would make sense? Oh, we could... No, never mind. Well, I could do that. So this is technically cold storage. So you could have a refrigerator car stage there, but I think we'll skip that. What else might we have going in and out of here? Don't know. I want some gondola traffic, though. So I'm randomly deciding there's going to be a gondola here. And I want a empty flat car. Or do I want a flat car with some farm machinery on it? That might be fun. What can I load this flat car with? Bricks. Maybe we'll have some bricks coming in and this will be an empty one. The bricks feel like a... I don't know. Bricks feel like something that'd be inbound. Yeah, we'll just leave this one empty. So we've got our gondola, flat car, and a bunch of loaded boxcars. If we want to have fun, we could say that there's some express freight that comes in and goes off from here. Or maybe a Pullman that gets switched to a different train. I like the idea of a Pullman. Let's see what I got. There we go. I dig it. Okay, so it's a mixed train. But a mixed train wouldn't grab a Pullman. That seems odd. I just want a Pullman sitting there. It looks cool. Okay, so that is our... and we're going to say everything is outbound, because why not? And then inbound, probably some more boxcars. And we'll make it 4, and we'll just drop off 2 per location. And let's bring in some... It feels weird not to have any energy, coal or oil. So I'm going to do... I need to do some coal traffic. I'm just going to feel very remiss if not. Maybe we'll put an empty hopper, but we'll put a tank car that isn't ready to be moved. So that way we have to respot it. I like that idea. So that's our empty outbound hopper. And this will be a loaded inbound. There we are. Okay, so we've got coal coming in and an empty going out. And then let's put a empty tank car there. And that's going to have to be respotted. There we go. That gives a good amount to do. This might take longer than I assume. We'll bring a tank car in for that, what is the EBT blacksmith shop. And what else do we want to bring in? Yeah. Got that. You know, we're bringing that in for that. And we've got the other plant. Yeah. I think that'll probably work. I think that's a good amount. I don't want to overwhelm myself. So I'm going to stage this train out on the layout first, and then I'll tuck it behind for the actual running thereof. So I want to put a mail car on the tail end. Because I could just do a caboose. No, we'll do caboose. We haven't done a caboose yet. Okay, so we've got our caboose. And then we need our power. And our power, we've got a couple of choices. If we were doing diesel era, we'd have GP30s. But we're not doing diesel era. So we've got a choice of 10-wheelers. In that there is the SU. Or nope, that's the switcher type that I downloaded. We've got the T3s and the T5s. There we go. So here's the T3. I kind of want to do the T5, though. Slightly more powerful, and also the later version that I want to use has a funky blind, not blind driver, but New York Central-esque. I don't know what you'd call this with the holes in the wheel, but it's kind of funky and different, so we're going with that. So this is a late T5, so we're going to put on 110 tender with that. That feels chunky. I like that. Okay, so this is going to be our consist for today. So both the T3 and the T5 10-wheelers are payware over on Trains Forge. Quality models, as you will see shortly with the T5. We're going to get underway here. Let's make it interesting since we went one way. The last time we'll go the other way with this guy. We're going to get it ready to stage in the background. And let's see how we do with switching tonight. And we'll bring it out into the limelight shortly. And make sure that my switches are still set correctly, which I think they are. Thinking that they are is half the battle. And we'll fast forward just to bring it out into the light. There we go. And here is our mixed train for today. Oh, that is nice. That is a nice model. Should probably get up to a little bit more speed. And I kind of want to appreciate the... Oh, I should have put something for the... silly me. I didn't put anything for Union. Okay, we're going to pretend that we're picking up a boxcar. One of the overnight cars. Because I almost forgot to put something for Union. It's... silly me. Okay. So, MNRR. And let's put an express boxcar there. Or maybe an overnight boxcar. There we go. Good enough. Okay, so that way we have something to do on the return trip. I'm going to do a couple of loops just to take in the scenery and appreciate what we've done before we head in to do our switching. Another great thing with having a roundy layout is that way you can make your run as long or as short as possible. I see some very nice layouts that are end to end. I wouldn't say that I'd never consider doing an end to end layout, but to me, there's just times when you don't want to be switching, you don't want to be doing stuff, and the ability to just sit back and take stock of what you're already doing is really fun to just watch it go around in circles. So we're going to do one extra lap, and then we'll bring it in and do our actual station stop, or more specifically, run around work. Could be a station stop if we had a combine. Oop. So it turns out, no comments. It turns out I forgot to set the switch for the Pullman siding, so nothing happened. Nothing to see here, ladies and gentlemen. Please disperse. We're good. It's all good. It's all back together. Nothing happened. Oops. Okay, and then I need to remove that because it decided to roll on the tracks on its own, of course. Oh, it still wants to roll along the tracks. That's got a lot of pent-up energy. And then it decided to derail on its own again. Okay. You know what? I'm just deleting this car. There. There we go. Okay. Back to the good part. And also making sure our switches are set so we don't repeat that mistake. Okay. This too. I guess this one doesn't have a custom cab. But it does have really nice detail. And you do have a lot of control. You can open and close the smoke box door. And yes, there's detail inside the smoke box. You can choose whether it's a scheduled train, following section. We're going to make ours an extra. So we've got the lights and you can open and close the windows. You can pop open the window deflector, roof hatch. So a lot of nice detail with this engine. Oh, I suppose I should... There we go. Now that's a scene. That is a scene. A link to the Trains Forge model. Just, I should have thought to put a link to the Trains Forge models. I apologize for that. But if you just Google search Trains with a Z Forge, then you will find their website and you will see all the products on the shop page. I'll put a link in the description for those watching on repeat. But these are some seriously nice models. Okay, so now we are doing our proper arrival into Relis. So, and this time we're going to emulate as if we are at the end of the line and we are turning our train around and going the other way. So, now to figure out the switching moves. So, all of this except for the tank we're picking up. 2 of these cars are going here, 2 of these cars are going there. So I'm going to need to restage the hopper into the middle of this cut. That tank car is getting shoved into there. So probably makes sense to do that after the runaround move. Get those 2 cars I could put them on the front end. Oh, and grabbing that, I could do at any time. I might do that first just to get it out of the way. So we'll come up to the switch over here so we could do some of our initial rearranging. You'll notice that we put Caboose Industries ground throws. I'm proud to say those are 3D models that I made myself. So you have actual Caboose Industries ground throws, which is kind of fun for recreating the train layout vibe. So I want to grab everything in a cut, essentially. Actually, rather than having to worry about its placement with the caboose, I could put those cars on the track over here. I might not have enough room for all of that, though. Interesting. I have enough room to run around some of the cars, but not all the cars. A lot of options as to what I can do here. But I definitely want to get that car out from the freight shed because that just feels like it's in the way. So I think I'm just going to shove that back next to the caboose. No, that doesn't sound right. We'll just leave that there for now. I'll figure out what I want to do with it later. Challenge of operating and narrating and making sure I don't plow into Pullman cars. Too much going on at once. So if we're appreciating this from the actual model railroad vantage viewpoint and trying to pretend it's in, I suppose it would look to be about that size. I like the track arrangement here, though. There's a good amount to do. Not too much, not too... Oh, I should need to change the trigger radii of those curves so that I don't have to clear them by a mile. How do we do that? We go to advanced. We just set the trigger radius to 0. We have to click on all of the switches to say you are not actually being blocked because it's a little overzealous with how much room it insists on having. Okay, that should work. So now we've cleared that, we can grab that. I'm starting to formulate a plan in my mind whereby, yeah, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. I definitely want to get all of these pickups in one go, respot the tanker, and take them out. I think that's probably a good place to start because that just makes sense. The interesting challenge about having so many boxcars is that you really have to pay attention to, okay, which cars are which. So I'm taking only the ones that I need and setting out the right ones at the right spots. Because obviously if I was doing this with full planning, I'd have a not train order, but switch list with the car numbers and so forth. But I'm just going to go off of memory of what I picked up and what I dropped off. No, we'll bring it all into this track over here, I think. Or actually bring it into here. That makes sense. And that is switched the correct way, which is good. And nope, keep coming forward because I blocked that switch. I have a feeling I'm going to need to spot those 2 empty boxcars. Oop, monkey. And then I'm going to have to move things back. Anyway, while I'm deliberating my life choices, how are you guys enjoying yourself? What have you picked up? I'm curious if you picked up anything or gotten any ideas from what we've built here tonight. So I'm setting off these cars because I need to fish that tanker out. But I might actually just set all of them off, then put the loads, then get the tanker back in. Yeah, that sounds about right to me. So this is where I need to make my cut, is in between these 2 cars, because then I'm taking my... So those are the 3 loads from the concrete, 3 loads from the wood, the fuel cars, freight house car. So these are my 2 for the concrete, and then I need to put the tanker in between them. I also need to put the hopper between them. But I need to put the hopper, then the tanker. That trains guy, we need a cow. I could put a cow by the farm. The problem is I haven't really put a field for the cow. So it'd kind of just be this cow. I mean, maybe that's the point, is the cow is about to get on the main line. That could be an interesting story element. We'll see what I decide to do there. Doing good, just relaxing after a day of work. Well, I'm glad that you find this relaxing. That is the goal, is you get ideas from it, you're inspired to work on your own layout, or you just find it entertaining. I'm here for any and all of the above. A cow on the line. Well, putting a cow on the line could have disastrous consequences, but a cow next to the line, now that could be something. So I need to put the hopper next in that cut. So I'll put these 2 boxcars off to the side here. Then I'll move the hopper there. Then I'll fish the tanker out. Is there a better way of doing this? I'm sure you'll let me know if there is. But this is the I am thinking on the fly way. And I'm having fun. And I'm really kind of appreciating just what this is as a scene on the West End here. If we're assuming this is the West End. It's the West End now. Like, this feels like a nice scene in and of itself. Like, with the brick building in the backdrop especially. And obviously, if Midwest isn't your thing, you could definitely adapt this for pretty much anywhere. I think this is something where I could see adapting it for mountains. It's maybe not quite twisty, windy enough for mountains, but you could put mountains in the backdrop and do something more West Coast. You could do something East Coast with more forests. There's a lot of ways in which this plan lends itself for being adapted. Oops, I'm coupled at the wrong spot. I'm gonna use the 5-fingered crane to fix that so that I don't have to make that move again. Yay for the 5-fingered crane. Give this video a thumbs up if you like the 5-fingered crane, or the 4-fingered crane and a thumb, however you want to describe it. Can the cow be named Brewster? Sure. Brewster the cow. Oh. Let's see. You're making me search for Brewster. Cow. Okay. There's Brewster. Brewster can hang out with Roscoe. I love you guys. So we'll appreciate Brewster and Roscoe on our return trip. Okay, so that puts the hopper in the right spot. Now we gotta fish out the tank car. Well, honestly, you mentioned that you could set this in Virginia. This tender is giving me very strong Class M vibes, Norfolk and Western Class M. Definitely has that feeling to it. Okay, now we're getting that tanker out. Then these two empty boxcars to be loaded with grain. At which point that track is set, and then we're just doing our switching over on the other side. You're welcome with the names. Happy to help. Alrighty. Respawning the tank. But the thing with this is that I tried to go at least somewhat easy on myself as far as making all the cuts straightforward and having the terrain blocked in a reasonable manner, but you could definitely, if you wanted to make yourself a switching puzzle, you could have you could have multiple cars spotted, but only get one gets picked up from an industry. There's a lot of ways in which you can play around with this plan. And also, if you want to give an added level of difficulty, like here I am and I'm just blocking everything, but you could make it so that you have to clear the main line. So you'd have to have your train parked on the side track and only be working the side track um, and the industry tracks. That could be an interesting way to do it. Okay. So that's those two cars set out, and then we got to put these cars that are coming with us on the return trip back with us. Back with that cut there. So once I've put that cut together, then I can get these two, put on those, shove back, which then gives me a couple of runaround options because that caboose is going to need to go on the other side of all of these cars. The tank car doesn't need to, but the caboose does. Actually, Do I have enough room to put those? Not all together. I see what we could do. Okay, that works. I'm gonna save the caboose for the last thing. We're just gonna have it on the wrong end and then put it out of the way when we're working these industry cars. Making sure our switch is clear, because why? Or actually, no. Why am I making sure that switch is clear? I need to make sure that switch is clear so that I can actually get back to my loaded cut of cars. Tail Paul. This must be what Nick Ozrak would say. Trains with a Z, right? Yep. This is absolutely Trains with a Z. Or Train Z. Honestly, it's so... There's so many and continually more games as time goes on that it can be difficult to keep them straight. But Trains with a Z, you'll remember Trains with a Z. Even if it's not your favorite simulator, you will absolutely remember it. Let's take a moment and just appreciate how nice this model is up close while we're running back. Even the clapper and the bell moves. The builder's plate. Look at the... I'm moving and I'm saying look at the builder's plate. But now look at the builder's plate. That is some serious attention to detail. Kudos to Trains Forge for the level of detail that they put on their models. These are just absolutely beautiful. Oh, I didn't even notice the Minnesota logo on the cylinders. That's awesome. All right, and we'll pull by the switch here. John Overman, for some reason, this has inspired another layout idea. Port railroad switching on a harbor. Yeah, you could take that direction with it. I'm actually working on a port layout for a client right now. It does have continuous running, but it is all about the switching. It is very interesting track plan. I have a distinct voice and personality, according to Tall Paul. Watched many of my older videos. That is why I figured it has to be trains. You guessed correctly. Although a lot of my older reviews were Microsoft Train Simulator. John Overman, like Southampton yards with the USA TCS 100s on them. Yeah, that is a vibe. There's what is it? Railway Roundabout. There's a clip online. Clip. A video film from the 60s. I think it's Railway Roundabout. And you could see the E2s, aka the real life Thomas the Tank Engine, switching at Southampton with the giant cranes and ships in the background. That is a vibe. I am seriously tempted to build a micro layout that would be just kind of that scene of dockyard, ships, cranes. Well, big ship as your backdrop, crane on tracks. Make for a nice micro layout. It's the type of thing I wouldn't want to do it as a whole basement. That's just too much, but a little scene, that could be really fun. Okay, getting our cars spotted here at the different industries. So we've got our 2 for the concrete elevator. Then we'll move our cars up for the fuel tracks. And then the wood elevator spots. And wood elevator. Railway roundabout with the E2s, yeah. Glad I remembered it correctly. Okay, so what do we have left? Well, we need to... That tank car needs to go to where the gondola... Or no, not where the gondola, where the gondola is. Although, actually, if I want to save time, I could pull those now. Because I don't have to... Yay for saving time. I can pull those cars now, then put them back here so that I can just grab them with the train before I pull out of town. Because then the lightest cars are on the tail end, which is savvier blocking anyway. Z-scale, problem with doing a micro layout in Z-scale, or even switching, is that Z-scale is so finicky. I don't know that I'd want to make a switching layout for Z. I mean, some people, their reason for not doing N is because it's very finicky and ergo hard to do switching with. So, yeah. I would probably do HO. Now we're going to grab our flat car from unnamed industry number 4, aka the East Broad Top blacksmith shop, which does a really good job of looking like an industry. Another chance to thank our sponsor, Bantam Model Works, creators of laser cut kits for NHO O-scale. There is a link in the description. You can check out their recently released blacksmith shop kit. So that this, and what I liked about putting on this layout is it just demonstrates that you don't need to be modeling the East Broad Top to find use for the buildings. Because this it's my favorite structure in all of EBTdom. And it just looks like it could be a warehouse, it could be an industry. There's a lot of different ways you could contextualize its use. I'm gonna get a actually like this scene. I'm gonna try to get a screenshot that I like here. Screenshot moment. Probably should put some more trees in the background and fix that gap in the scenery, but that part comes later. Oh, I just noticed another detail. Look at the firebox. You can actually see the fire roaring inside. Now, if that isn't a reason to get this model, I don't know what is. Okay, so yeah, so we're gonna put these two cars on the far end here. And then once we've done that, we will run around our train, turn the power, spot the tanker over here, leaving the caboose over here, put the train together, and head out of town. And then we just have the car to pick up in Union. John Overman, you've done switching in, you prefer HO. I've never found myself doing like a prototype op session with an end layout, so I don't have an opinion on it yet. But I like HO from a size standpoint, from a compatibility standpoint, because you just have more options. Speaking of those Rapido D10s that I'm clamoring for, you know, those are HO models, and nobody's got them in N. So just a lot of reasons to prefer HO. That said, there is an N scale layout idea I have that would absolutely be N. And maybe someday if I have a 3D printer, I'll do it. So my idea is, what I'd really like to do, if you've ever seen the James Bond movie Moonraker, then you'll be familiar with the fictional company of Drax Enterprises, which is owned by the film's villain, Hugo Drax. They said that's the one where James Bond goes into space. So I have this vision of creating Drax Enterprises as an N-scale switching NASA railroad inspired layout. I really want to do it in the sim, but the problem is I need a space shuttle and some other, key buildings to make it look right. But I so want to do that as a build because I just think it would be really fun and different, because I like the NASA railroad. I think I love unique, unconventional railroads. So doing a fictional NASA railroad inspired Drax railroad, the reporting mark DRAX, like it writes itself. So that's what I really want to do in N scale, and I see this in an N scale build because you could get the Moonraker shuttle as a 1/200 kit. So it's a bit small for N, but it's still a big shuttle. And that to me just has all kinds of appeal to it. So that is the one layout that I would absolutely do that in N, even if it's a bit difficult as far as the switching is concerned. Here we are coming onto the turntable. So we're going to turn the power around for a return trip. And then we'll just press this a bunch of times so we can watch it do its thing. I'm glad you guys like the idea of doing a Drax railroad. As I said, it's something where hopefully sometime I could do it. I've talked to some folks about if they could do the 3D modeling of like the space shuttle and stuff, because to me that's what really makes it worthwhile. Like it needs to. Sometimes it's difficult to click on the arrow. No, I don't want to click on the engine. I want to click on the arrow. I do like trades, but sometimes it is just so annoying to deal with. There we go. Oh, come on. How many times do I have to click the thing? I wish there was a way. Yes, there are certain scripts that allow you to turn the turntable to the exact track, but oops, and I've turned it too far. Oh well. But yeah, that's a track plan where I know it needs some custom assets to really look good, but it's one I absolutely want to do. So hopefully someday on Great Train Layouts Live, we'll be doing the Drax Enterprises Railroad. Because I have an idea in my mind of what that looks like. And it would be a small, I'm not talking a big thing. I'm talking like maybe 2 by 6 feet. Just big enough to really get a sense of awe, but small enough that I could fit it with the 5 other layouts I'm probably going to build in the long run. This is the thing I realized. Like, so many people, it's like, I am going to build a single layout. For me, it's like, I'm going to build 5. Because I just can't make up my... I mean, this is why I do this show. It's because I can't necessarily make up my mind as far as what I like the best. I mean, there's certain common themes. You've heard me talk about Canadian railroading ad nauseum. So, yeah, that's kind of a staple. HO is a staple. But I find myself occasionally seeing certain track plans where I go, oh, but that's cool. Or, oh, that railroad's kind of nifty and unusual. And so it makes it really hard to be like, okay, what am I actually going to commit money to and say, this is what I'm doing and have the vision to stick with it. I mean, I'll be honest, for a while, even when I started the Greenfield, so I started the Greenfield Village layout when I lived in a different apartment. And then I moved where I live now and I gained a bigger office, so instead of having 2 walls open, now I have 3 walls open, or 3 sides of the layout open. Like initially it was in a corner, now it's on a peninsula. And so then I started looking at it and going, well, do I still want to do Greenfield Village, or does that not have enough operations? So maybe instead I want to do an urban, because I keep thinking I'm going to do an urban at some point. So I look at that and go, okay, so am I going to do an urban with it? And thankfully I decided against it because the idea of doing custom overhead, I do want to do it at some point, but probably not as a big thing. That's another, like, start small and learn how to do overhead trolley wire before going big. But yeah, so I decided to stick with the Greenfield Village theme, and I'm glad that I did. I'm really happy with it. Oops. I'm glad that I stuck with it for reasons that you'll see. But even when I'm happy with it, and I say, yes, I am glad that right now I have a layout that leans on the side of roundy so that I could just sit back and watch the train go round. I already know that I'm going to have a second layout because I've created some switching opportunity for how you can run the layout, and it's not just a circle. There is more to it than just being a circle, which is nice, but it's not switching like this. And so there's a second shelf layout I want to build in this office that's going to have that switching component. And then you'll see some of the other track plans I've come up with that make me go, oh, but then there's this and there's this. So, yeah. It is what it is. I've come to accept it. But the key thing is that I've got the train sim to kind of test these ideas out and see what is going to stick and what's a fad. I've definitely built layouts that I thought, oh, this is going to stick, and it turned out to be a fad in the sim. So I feel like if there's something that really holds an appeal that makes me go, no, I actually really want this in real life, then I'm going to know, and I'm going to have a greater degree of confidence that it's worth focusing on. Model railroading with Evans trains and things. Thanks for joining us. What's the setting? So this layout is the Minnesota and Northern Railroad, a fictional railroad based in, you guessed it, Arkansas. So we are modeling the Midwest with a lot of plains and farms and so forth. And we're just getting our train back together. So we'll take a loop around. And if you missed the earlier part of the stream, you'll get to see what we've built, which is fun. So we've got that part of our train together. Now we're going to get the... Oh, and I almost forgot to throw that switch. But, oh, and I did forget to throw that switch. So I'm going to move my train out of the way so I can throw that switch properly. And now... I can go and get my cars, get my caboose, do a couple of laps. Matthew Harris, hey Nick, what is the best way to do grass detail? Are you talking about in Train Z or real life? I'll start with Train Z, which is using PBR textures in Trains 19. It gives you the dimension, especially when you have mixed in rock and so forth. Then in some cases, depending on how tall you want your grass to be, layering it with splines. If you're talking about an actual model railroading, depends on how tall your grass is. Probably static grass. Actually, what's interesting with Greenfield Village is I'm using one of those Woodland Scenic's grass mats because their grass is always immaculately mowed, so the grass is really short, so it's realistically short. I am going to add some other turf colors to it, so it's not a flat green, but yeah. So sort of depends on what you're modeling, both in the sim and in real life. I am really happy with how this turned out. I'm going to have to refine some of the grass edges along here, but that to me looks legit. Oh, and I should throw the switch because otherwise I'm going to pull onto the turntable. Yay for not going onto the turntable. And yes, this is 19... I'm going for 40s, yeah. But it's very loose and flexible. I mean, that's what I like about this plan, is that it'd be very easy to change up the era, and it still works. Even, I could see doing 1970s CP rail with this, where you've got RS-18s and Jeep 9s and that kind of thing, and that would be fun. And the plan lends itself to it. And there's certain advantages. So let's say you don't want to go through the complications of having an engine terminal with a turntable. Well, then don't. Then have it be diesel powered, and you don't have to worry about a turntable. All right. So that wasn't too bad. That was the right amount of switching for what I was going for. Sometimes I plunk down a few cars, think it's going to be easy, and then it's not. But we've got the right amount of cars. We're going to be departing Relish. And we'll head out. We'll take a nice victory lap of completing that switching, then we'll work the cars in Union. Larry the Lad, is this meant to represent a part of the Minnesota Northern? Yep, that's what this is going for. The idea is either some kind of branch line. So maybe you could even say it's a single track main line. I mean, it really depends on how you detail it, what type of condition you model the track in. Oh, I need to pause and get a screenshot of this. But there's a lot of flexibility to how you model it. I think I'm going to change the time of day to make it afternoon so I can move my lighting around. There we go. Nope. Train's decided to do weird thing, but now the light's on the right side. Here we go. So we get to say hi to Brewster the cow and Roscoe the dog as we go by the farm. Brewster and Roscoe. Let's get a close-up on Roscoe. Everybody loves Roscoe. Oh, look at that. He's even wagging his tail. Oh, man. Let me make sure I threw all my switches correctly going into here, because knowing me, I forgot to throw something, and I done screwed it up. Okay, we're going to go on the outside loop this time, because I feel like it, and all my switches are lined correctly. So I'm not going to do something stupid, at least not this time. This scene is giving me Everett Railroad vibes. Yeah. Actually, it's interesting. A couple weeks ago, I was on the Everett, and I did a rare mileage excursion all the way from Hollidaysburg down to Sproul at the very south end of their line. So that was a fun trip. Yeah, you could definitely do an excursion railroad with this. So if you did an excursion railroad, this would be your main station that your trains would be departing from, and then they go around most of the loop, and then either reverse back, or maybe you'd put in a passing siding, because you could put in a passing siding over here. Maybe even a short one over here, depending on how you built it. But yes, you could totally do a tourist railroad. So here we are coming into Union. We're going to pick up this overnight boxcar, take it with us. Like that, I like that as a scene. That makes me happy. A lot of good scenes that we're coming up with. Did I follow that? I kind of followed the switch. We'll push that back a little bit. Oh, I just noticed the bell on the tender, too. That is some serious attention to detail. That's what's fun about doing something that's freelance, is you can do all sorts of kind of details and mix and match as you see fit. I think there's a lot of fun with that. Gonna have to clear it a little bit more. But you know what? I'll take it, because, man, that is a nice scene right there. Just camping out on the bridge. You know, I think that's something to consider when you're thinking about your scenes. It is worth contemplating, where are people, when people are operating your layout, or you're operating your own layout, where are you naturally going to stop your train? Like, where's the switching happening? Because wherever your switching is happening, getting your scenery right there is probably the most important thing, because you're going to be staring at that area for a long time. So if you don't like it, you're going to really be noticing it over and over. Whereas your in-between sections are nice, but you're going through them really quickly. Ah, that makes me happy. I like it when a layout comes together. I like it when a track plan comes together. There we go. That's the one. Honestly, for me, like, I know that, John, you're mentioning its similarity to Everett. To me, the thing it's making me think of is Strasburg Railroad. You know, the combination of these wooded areas with these farms. Strasburg Railroad definitely feels like you could run. You know what? I'm gonna run Strasburg. We're gonna take this, because we've got our train together. We're gonna take it out to staging. We're gonna close this stream out with a nice Strasburg Railroad run, because I feel like it. um, so that's what it says to me is Strasburg Railroad vibes. I'm seeing East Tennessee and Western North Carolina as well. Derpy Possum, this kind of landscape is everything I need in my life's little train corner. Good. That train sky, like 1960s Strasbourg. Yeah, yeah, very much like 1960s Strasbourg, where you have less of the development, the tourist development. So now we're disappearing into the backdrop. But man, this is man, this made me happy. This build, there's certain builds I go into where I have high expectations in the sense of that I look at the plan and I think this plan looks really good, and I'm looking forward to building it. I'm looking forward to realizing it, and this is that plan. Like this is something, and I know, you know, take a drink every time Nick says I could see building this in real life, but I could. Because it's so adaptable. It has the basics of what I'd want. So it has the ability to run branch trains with my Rapido D10s. It has the ability to run a streamliner like my Canadian. That's the kind of layout I want. Because in the long run, I don't have the room for it now. But someday when I do, I want to be able to run my 10-car, 3-locomotive Canadian. And this is the kind of layout that can fit it, have the nice, easy radii for the curves, for the cars, and do these different things well, and with a little bit of ops so that I can run it on my own and I don't feel like I'm alone in the world. Because some layouts, if you get too big, you really need to run it with other people. But this is one that lends itself well to doing a solo op session. But you could run it with a second person where somebody's running a local freight and somebody else is running a passenger service. You have to coordinate the meets. Like one person is running single train, the other person is kind of taking things in and out of staging. I think there's a lot you could do with it. So, as a sort of final victory lap, because why not? We're going to run Strasbourg. Because I feel like it. That's our C. So we're going to go with the 2018 Lawn Consist, like so. And I'm going to, like, yes, with the Marion on that side, because then I get to put, and I am going to go with the high headlight version of 475, because that's my personal favorite. There we are. That's the one I want. I don't know. I never run the 90s version. We'll run the 90s version. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I was saying earlier about how I was getting serious M-Class vibes from that 10-wheeler, and I just couldn't help myself. So now we're running with an actual M-Class. I hope that someday we get a good ready-to-run non-brass version of an M-Class. I would love to have that in HO. Okay, so a last treat. This is a K&L Trains model. And this is a good way of experimenting with the idea of, okay, so we built this around the Minnesota and Northern, and that's, you know, the primary focus. Let's say that's the primary thing we want to model. But once in a while, I just want to run Strasbourg. So we're going to kind of see how it looks in, especially the other scenes. Like here, it's a little bit out of place. No, not entirely. It's actually a really good space for if you're doing the full-length Strasbourg trains, because they are long. Let me just throw the switch here and make sure that nothing else is screwed up coming in. Okay. Oh, yeah. This should be good. Right here. Oh, that is nice. I like that a lot. A lot, a lot. I like that. Oh, let's go on the open car, because why not? Yay, that super elevation. Oh, that is fun. But that looks good, right? I mean, it looks legit. I mean, no, it's not a Strasbourg seed, but it has that flavor to it. That's what excites me about it is that, we all sometimes, I think there's some folks with remarkable focus. So on the Roundhouse podcast, if you listen to the show or you see it on YouTube, you'll see that I recently interviewed Jack Burgess, who famously models the Yosemite Valley Railroad. Boy, he is so laser focused on that railroad and has been modeling it for over 40 years. I give him immense credit for that. But I think a lot of us, like, we have other, we like a little bit of this, we like a little bit of that. Um, and so having a layout where you can say, well, I usually do this, and this is kind of the focus of what I do, but once in a while I want to do that other thing. And in my case, in this case, that other thing can be Strasbourg. And it looks reasonable. Like, it doesn't look cartoony being on here, especially not with the length of, given how big our station is. Like, the length of train fits the station, which is nice. So we're gonna do one last pass through of the rural area, and then we'll send that back to staging as well. Um, but this has been fun. I have enjoyed this immensely, guys. I hope that you have as well. Um, yes, Yosemite Valley is definitely cool AF. Um, but we're gonna take one last trip through. And there will be a Strasbourg bill. I have a track plan for a Strasbourg Railroad layout. Um, I'm waiting on some things, but that is going to be coming because I absolutely want to do a Strasbourg Railroad layout because I think that it's a fun little challenge of a thing. Like, how do you take that tourist railroad? And it's harder than you think. It's harder than you think to do the Strasbourg Railroad, and we'll be doing an HO. Oh, that makes me happy. That makes me so happy. I hope it makes you happy too. Yeah, where do I want to stay? We'll watch it from here. All right. So as number 475 disappears into the staging area, I think now is as good a time as any to thank you guys for watching tonight. This has been the Minnesota and Northern A track plan created by Iain Rice. N scale, 5 feet by 7 feet, compact little guy that can fit so much operation in, whether you're in a mainline passenger, road freight, switching. This has a little bit of everything. It can satisfy to about 1 to 2 operators. Totally worth it. I'm going to have to put a little bit of polish on it before I release it, but it will be coming to greattrainlayoutslive.com. And that's where you should go if you want to see all of my project layouts that I've built on live streams. You can check it out there. Also want to give a huge thanks to our sponsor, Bantam Model Works, for supporting the live streams. Really appreciate you guys watching. Hope you've had fun. Leave a comment below if you're watching this on repeat. Let me know what you think. If there's specific things you'd like to see in the future. Last thing, if you want me to take a look at your track plan or you want me to design a track plan and pre-visualize it for you, I do take commissions. You could go to greattrainlayoutslive.com to learn more about that. Thank you guys for watching. It's been great to have you along, and I will see you again soon.